There, I went live and I wasn't even on camera. Imagine that. Hello, if anybody's about. I thought what I would do while I'm waiting for this guest. Something's up with my camera, actually. It's probably just the light. Ooh, that's you'd nearly think it was summer. I know I had a few people, a few familiar faces, familiar names were on. We're waiting in the chat. Oh, left is right and right is left. War is peace. So if you're still around, cool, hello, make yourselves known. I thought what I would do when I'm waiting for my guest. Let me tell you about this guest. So he tagged me on Facebook. I think it was back in December. Maybe it was just after the election. He was sort of celebrating Brexit. He's a Brexit fan. And he tagged my name with an Irish flag beside it. On where was it? Maybe it was on one of the local town Facebook pages around here. And I saw my name come up. I didn't know I wasn't friends with this guy, so I wouldn't have got the notification from him. Anyway, I mean, this is all like Facebook details. I'm a bit of a Facebook bloody nerd. So if you're not into Facebook, you wouldn't be interested in all that. Anyway, so I contacted. I thought, is this a wind-up or what? The guy had a. I didn't think it was a wind-up because he had a Protestant name. I thought, well, you know, what's the Protestant name on the Irish flag, the tricolour. I thought that could be a bit of a wind-up. So I contacted him, and he says, "Yeah, I did vote for you. Oh, this was all over. Hi, Richard. Richard, you're new, I think, so you're very welcome. I vaguely recognize the name, but I haven't seen you contribute before. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Good man." So contacted him, and he said, "Yes, I did vote for you." I said, "Are you a member of the party, the Irish Student Party?" And I think he said he was interested, or he was. I'm not sure exactly. So we had a quick chat, and then it got left to one side because we were straight into Christmas, and then the speculation about when the Irish general election was going to be, and then that happened. Then we're waiting for government to get formed, and then COVID came, etc., etc., etc. So until quite recently, I had no real call to call him, to be in touch. But given that there was a scare or indication that there might be a second election, which I mentioned in the previous video, check it out if you haven't seen it. I thought I'd give him a call or get in touch with him in any case. So we had we talked for the guy. He can talk, and his testimony was excellent. And it's a testimony we don't hear too often in Irish nationalism channels. The voice of the Protestant, somebody from, I'm not even sure if he's practicing, so it wouldn't be right to call him Protestant, but somebody from the Unionist. He's actually Presbyterian by upbringing. Somebody from the Unionist background. So he just talked, and it sounded like he needed to get it off his chest, and he did say that he did relish the opportunity to talk about the way things were going, Euroscepticism, Brexit, mass immigration, etc., etc., etc. I don't want to take the wind out. I don't want to steal his thunder if he does come on. So that's why I decided to put this live stream up. Now that was the reason I was contacting him was to gather together people of a similar mindset to meet in person. So I'm planning to meet a couple of people tomorrow. A friend who canvassed with me. Well, he became my friend through canvassing. Somebody I'd met in passing in another context through another nationalist in Tyrone. And he came down and canvassed, a great fella. He's been down from the other end. Tyrone's a big county. He's been down from the other end of the county. We had a great chat there a couple of weeks ago, walking around, and we decided to keep that up and then try and bring other people in on a sort of like a one or two small, increasing the number with trusted people. maybe somebody that he would know that I didn't know, or maybe somebody that I would know and he didn't know, and just gradually increase the sort of number of connections. Because like I could know 5 people but know them all separately, but those 5 people don't know each other, so it's important to get them connected up as well. I see that this is going on a small scale. That sounds strong. This is fantastic. I haven't even. No, whatever way I put it. Okay, Richard. Thanks. Yeah, you did so. I see the ends in there too. How's it going? Yeah, where was I? This is the thing when you're talking to yourself, you can't remember. You stop to do something else, and you can't remember where you were. Anyway, yes, so that's getting together post lockdown, starting to get together in small groups, getting to know each other, getting to trust each other. Because nothing big can happen without trust. Um, all these atomized individuals on the internet saying, "Oh, okay, let's have a rising, let's take the streets," but it's always like you go first. It's never like I'm going to be at such and such a place. Who will join me? Interestingly, and that is from lack of cohesion, lack of strong bonds, lack of trust. If you have trust, and somebody says, "I'm going, will you go with me?" And there's a level of trust and feeling of team between those people because they've met each other, they've talked. Um, Maybe they've done a few things. They've worked on something together. That builds a bond, and that's what's missing in all these online jamborees, these mass live streams, etc., where there's like 400 people, 500 people in the chat. Now, it's there to a certain extent, of course, because one stage of connectedness below that would be you're just emailing somebody and they're emailing back. So you're unaware of the reaction of what other people are, what's going on in the other conversations. But anyway, we're talking about moving through the stages to be able to produce some sort of cohesive movement. People do need to be engaging with each other sooner or later. Big shout out to the Drogheda Patriots. I was hoping, let's see if when I was waiting for my neighbour to come on, I texted them. They're probably travelling back to the other end of the county. Say no more than that. To see, I hear they had a good canvas today down in Drogheda. I think there might be a picture somewhere. Probably if I go and get it, it'll take too long. Okay, so the other thing, so at the moment we're limited to 6 people each, 6 people in the north and 6 people meeting in the south at any one given time for any one gathering. So I can understand people might be a bit reticent to meet because of that, and there's no real need to be, because like if you can meet, if 10 people turn up, just split into 2 groups of 5. If you've got 2-hour schedule for your meeting, somebody just text me. I wonder if it's anything to do, anybody I could bring along. Yeah, I see. What was that? This is an anti-lockdown demonstration. I think that's the one that was in Cork today. Very good. See the Irish Republic flag there. Where was it? Where was it, people? Real Irish Media. Irish Real Media. Good man. I think you're the guy with the low voice. Is that right? Even lower than mine was the other day. Yes. Popping up and out. You see, every time a new voice appears, it's like the enemy to. Okay. So, like 2 years. 2 years ago, it was easy for them because there was Gran Torino. And 1 year, it was easy for them because there was Gemma Doherty and Gran Torino and the Irish Patriots. Now it's like, fuck, there's one over there. There's one over there. Where do we go? Where do we launch our attack? So in that sense, it's good, and it's also showing all of us that we're legion. They're like popping up all over the place. I want a bit of the action. I want a bit of the limelight. Let me. Bit of the limelight. Yeah, this Connor boy's hogging all the limelight. Well, I do get that. I do get that. So back to cohesiveness. This is this is where we need um, man managers, people with man management experience and organizational experience in the movement. Uh, dare I say it, the leaders don't really have that. But that's not a problem because we do need fantastic speakers and people with the vision, people with the political vision that have done the research, etc. But there does need to be behind them or just next tier down, like strong organizers and man managers. If we're going to avoid embarrassments like the last electoral showing. Now, I'm talking. I'm not sparing anybody here. I'm talking across the board, absolutely across. You know, with possibly, if we include the Inter in this, well, possibly they're a little bit less disorganized than the rest of us. If we widen, that's in the broadest possible nationalism. Okay, low voice, Irish media. Maybe I didn't realize. Got to put the mic up. No, I mean low in terms of bass. Low in terms of bass. Um, I think you're the fellow who gave the big up to DT, and you had a few wise words for the Irish Patriot backwards and forwards. I think that's you, isn't it? Well, yeah, you're a very authentic fellow. And look, I'll give you the compliment back as well. Sub to this guy, Irish Real Media. He's authentic. He doesn't pull any punches. He doesn't suffer any fools. And I think it was beautiful the way you did give praise. You actually did something like you don't see Irish people do, Irish men do very often, which say you admitted to being moved by somebody. So if that's you, then great. If it's not you, then just take the praise anyway. It was somebody else, and it is good to see that range of emotions. And the thing there that I was struck by that channel is the authenticity of this guy. And I think maybe I even had one or two stiff words with him at one point, or he had some one or two stiff words for me, or not somewhat. Yeah, just maybe like keep the rules. And what, I have no problem with being told off for keeping the rules. Now, unfortunately, we live in a society where people go ape shit if somebody tries to remind them of rules or protocol. And I've had a lot of that in my Facebook groups where people were acting the leg and warned, and then sometimes they weren't warned because they just like I just knew from previous experiences that the warning was going to be of no use, and they were asked to leave. So I'm just going to make a point that a Facebook group or a live or a Facebook chat, it's if I set it up, it's my game. Like a group chat, for example. Like that's one that we've had recently. Oh yeah, I need to check. There's a vote going on whether somebody's going to be allowed to stay in a group chat or not. But these examples of man management and teething problems. As an organization grows, you are going to get like strong-willed people that will test boundaries, and if their behavior is out of order and is compromising the functioning of a group, then they will have to you have to take sanctions. There's no question. There's no option. There's no other option. The whole cannot be held to hostage by one person. So I have booted people, and they've gone crying, and I think there's a disaffected cadre of people that have been booted off various groups, possibly by me or possibly by some of my associates, or possibly partly, one of us would have like raised it to a certain extent, and the other person might have pulled the trigger. Unfortunately, it comes to me sometimes to be the one that pulls the trigger. When I say pull the trigger, it's just a metaphor for pressing the button to say go on or send a message to say, okay, sorry, that's unacceptable, bye. And any organization that's trying to build something, there has to be there's a hierarchy. But that's another thing people don't really. Somebody sets the thing up, and then if I set a Facebook group up or a chat up, guess what? I get to decide the rules. Okay, if you want to run your rules in your Facebook group or your Facebook chat, go and set up your own. Anyway, I don't want to labour the point, but it is a wider point of moving away from the broadcaster broadcasts information, and everybody sits there passively and just takes it up. But as we start doing things, then there needs to be structures, hierarchical structures, or looser structures, depending on what's appropriate. Irish Real Media says, "I don't take sides. Anyone who wants the best for the Irish people is my friend." Good. We need that spirit. I'm not going to try to push people in any direction. Bar what's best for the Irish as a whole. Paul, there's Paul. But having too many voices can be negative to another tool to divide us, two sides, loyalty. Well, it depends on. Yeah, I get what you're saying. If there's, but if it's just people standing up and giving their testimony, and this is what's important, I think. This is what I love to see about the new channels. A lot of them aren't, or even a channel. When I say a new voice, I don't necessarily mean a new channel. It could be a new channel, but it could also be a new guest appearing for the first time on an existing channel. Like there was a couple of people I heard, a couple of young girls down in Dublin who were doing this, handing out a paper, and they were interviewed. They brought a lot of energy. They brought a lot of energy. So fair play, and that will appeal to a certain demographic, the demographic that can relate to those people. So this is another reason I wanted to bring my neighbour on, because we've had a few people from the Unionist tradition on, but not too many. So Eurosceptic Unionist tradition, we're going to have to, we're going to be working together a lot in the future. So we better get to know them, welcome them, and that's what I wanted to do with our friends. Yeah, okay. Cheers, Paul. Paul's going to look up Irish Real Media. Yeah, okay. So while I'm checking a few things here, what I thought, groiping is the other thing I want to talk about. Groiping, not groping, but Groy. Groip. I don't know where. I think this is sort of an edgy. Yeah, actually, now I remember, there's an edgy sort of like a origin to the word groip. But basically, it means putting your going to the enemy platform and putting your message across, but doing it either very artfully, very skillfully. So you sort of like sidled it in under, almost like a wooden horse of Troy. Like radio shows, groiping radio shows, for example, there's been a few instances of that on LBC, etc. You come on and you hold forth. You need to be a good talker for that one. That's where it's a bit of an art. You need to be able to talk about another subject as if that was the subject that you called in about. And then when they start relaxing and sit back and say, okay. So they start relaxing into the conversation. You have to engage them so much so that they're actually in the conversation, and then you let your truth bombs drop. And I'm going to have to stop using that term because that will be twisted and used against me. I'm talking about logic. Or arguments, dropping some logic or arguments that would smash up the. Yes, they've got some. Yeah, I was doing a bit of like amateur groiping there, trying to organise the thumbs down for the mural, or the Muriel, as they say up in Belfast. I wonder why is that. I wonder is that why there's a bar called Muriel's? Is it a bit of a piss take? Bit of a play on the way Belfast people say mural. The new mural, the pathetically simplistic George Floyd. It's been done to death, but in particular the three. Now obviously, it looks like it was some sort of malpractice, or whether to what degree it was on purpose. That will be established. But it was an unfortunate situation. However, just the way that's been cherry picked, that one incident has been one regrettable incident has been cherry picked and used to create a false narrative of institutional racism in the States when the statistics don't bear that out. Anyway, so it's an excuse to bring in identity politics, and Sinn Féin, of course, are hugging that one and trying to ride that one. But it's not very popular. It's not very popular. So they're out on a limb there with that one, and they need to wind their neck back in. So please, if you haven't done so already, find it on their channel. The video, the unveiling of the mural, which is factually incorrect because it's got 3 white cops as well. When they weren't white, they were Hispanic, and they certainly weren't white anyway. The other 3 cops. I'm downvoted. So anything else you can see on the Sinn Féin channel. There's space for comments on some of them. They've had to turn the comments off, and the Emperor's got no clothes. So I mean, come on. What we can aim to do is to get the comments turned off, force them to turn off the comments on all their channel, on every video on the channel. That could be that's a winnable aim. That's a winnable aim in the next 2 months. So that's a wee task to do while you're getting into the idea. I mean, people who this is aimed at people who already spend a lot of time online in the echo chamber. At least get out of the echo chamber and make a noise in the outside world for example, our let's go. The party leadership is our enemy, but some of those people who follow that party, a lot of them, in fact, are our potential allies. They're just Irishmen like you and I, who want the best for Ireland, but they've been led down the path. So there's more piece. How's it going? I keep starting one thing and jumping into something else. I'm just on the fly here while I'm seeing if waiting for my neighbour. Messages come in. No, it's not in yet. Okay, so what I thought I might do is play this little introduction to Grow. Well, it introduces 2 or 3 good things. Grouping, the Iconoclast, and then 2 YouTubers, the Iconoclast and Unwashed. Iconoclast has been around for a while, and Unwashed is a new face. Very, very good. Of course, he's more English nationalism, UK nationalism, but more English nationalism. I don't really know if they make a distinction, but he's and while it's not our fight exactly, we can. It's a bigger movement because there's more of them, and we can get ideas from there and give them moral support and gain moral support. We're in an international. We're internationalists for nationalism. So the nationalists, the Angolan nationalists, who's that guy? The Libyan nationalists have been getting into Gaddafi. I've been reading up about Gaddafi and watching videos of some good stuff there about Gaddafi. Gaddafi has been held up as a good example of economic nationalism. So there's good stuff there on YouTube about that. So they're our brothers in nationalism. We're internationalists in nationalism. We a nationalist who wants peace between all nations. The best way is strong sovereign states, ethno-states. And then the issues are caused by multiculturalism. No multicultural state has survived, or empire has survived for a long time. Okay, more pieces, dinner time. Right, I'm going to shut up and play this video. I've been talking for 23 minutes. It doesn't seem like that. That's the nerves of being live. Right, so I need to. There it is. Okay. Share screen. So yeah, this is the art of groping and real world activism on the Iconoclasts channel.
On this episode of Icono Chats, I speak to Unwashed, otherwise known as Nick. Don't worry, I don't think he's filthy or anything. I think it's a deeper name for some wider meaning. Unbrainwashed, perhaps. I don't know. Explain yourself, Nick. Anyway, we had a great chat about all things politics, all things culture, mainly the Groyper movement, which is putting demographics and other topics in front of people who just refuse to talk about it. We discuss how positive we both are about the future of where we're going and the people within this movement. And overall, it's just a really enjoyable, laid-back chat, so I hope you all enjoy it. All of his links are down below. Go sub to him, go follow him, support him. He's doing good work. Okay, here we go.
You're okay?
Nick, how's it going?
Oh, it's great, man. It's a fun year so far.
Yes, it is. I've discussed this with a few people already. Laura Towler, the other day, we discussed that, 2020, it's only 2 months in, and already so much has been said, so much has been achieved, and so much enjoyment has been had by all.
Yeah, I'm just seeing loads of collaboration, loads of ideas being thrown out by people, and loads of teamwork. That's the most important thing. I don't think we've seen this many people just ready to pitch in.
No, I agree completely. And Telegram is where it's at. So if you guys don't have Telegram, get on it immediately. That's where it's all happening. So before we get onto all the groiping stuff, which is the greatest thing that's going on YouTube right now, in my opinion, let's get into you. Not literally, that's a bit gay, but let's get into your sorry about that. Let's get into your history. Because you're new on the scene. How old's your channel now? About 6 months, 5 months?
Yeah, so 6 months in, but pretty gung-ho with it as well. So I don't know. I've been pretty relentless.
Yes. For those of you who don't know Nick, his channel popped up out of nowhere. And since then, he has just gone balls to the wall without a care in the world. He's been fired from his job, banned from PayPal. Like, this is stuff that took me about 3 years to achieve, and he's done it in about 3 months. So props there, Nick. But what was the inciting incident for you to jump into the YouTube game, and not only jump into the YouTube game, but go so hard on it?
I mean, specifically the inciting incident, if you want me to nail it down to one, was attending Mark's conference. Because when I got to see all of, I started off as a fan of all of you guys, and then seeing 7 people in a room giving speeches and 100 people listening, it suddenly stopped being this internet thing. And I know, ironically, you have to jump onto the internet to really make any kind of impact. But it was the offline stuff that made me go, right, this is the place to be. These are the people to work with. This needs to happen.
But what about people like Mark and Laura? And I think you were a subscriber of mine for a while as well. What is it about this scene that captivated you before that? Because I completely agree with you. Seeing things happen in real life, it legitimizes it, really, doesn't it? But you've been watching this content for a couple of years. So what got you into the content to begin with?
It is, I think it can all be summed up in the word authenticity. Like, I've always been obsessed with subcultures and music and stuff like that. And I was a DJ for the last 10 years. And then that whole scene has gone completely woke, which to me is just a pack of lies, which is inauthentic. And, that was what I was into. And then I suddenly, since the Brexit vote and everything, it's like dominoes falling, realizing all these things that all these people around you believe that just have no basis in reality. But the people that were pushing at what was true and authentic were, you guys. So I was like, I want to be a part of this.
I think one of the many ways that people can identify what's true and what's genuine, you use the word authentic there. That's a word that keeps coming up in conversations that I have with people recently. It comes up all the time. And it is such a great word because it does describe exactly what this movement is. But people determine what the truth is by, first of all, it's an innate reaction within themselves. It's like a gut feeling. But also, the people telling the truth are the ones that have to be the most careful. They're the ones that get the most criticism and the smears and the ostracization. There is a pattern there, isn't there? The people, we'll get onto these guys later, but people who have YouTube channels who go after the anti-woke or they are anti-woke, I should say. They go after the woke culture. They're allowed to exist because that's where the Overton window is now. That's not a controversial thing to do anymore. Going after fat feminists is, well, it's all the rage. But where we are, the stuff we talk about, we're still not accepted yet. We're considered fringe. And that's why we have to be so careful over, well, in our everyday lives. We don't want to ruin our lives by going a bit too far, I guess. Do you think I'm right there? The people who are on the money are the ones that are always shunned?
Yes, they're the ones that are unsafe. They're the ones that Hope Not Hate have been writing the most stuff about for years, and it looks like they've completely crumbled now, which is looking good for us. That's a win. Yes. Yeah, so the people on our side, they're either living lives that are unsafe in one way or another, like there's threats and risks with doing it if you have a public face, or you have to hide who you are. Whereas these grifters that you were talking about, the anti-woke brigade, can form successful careers and eventually get on the Joe Rogan experience, whereas our lot have to hide and get banned from payment processors and kicked off YouTube. So that tells you, I mean, that was one of the main things that told me that this whole side was on the money, was the sheer amount of risk involved.
Yes, there's a lot of risk, but not much reward at the moment. But I think that will change. I think it'll become more balanced in the years to come. The whole thing, if I can go on a tangent for a moment, you mentioned PayPal there, payment processors. That is such an insidious thing that our opponents do. They cut off ways that we can survive, essentially, because, people need money to live, and PayPal is a mainstream payment provider that people use for its intended purpose. But if the board of PayPal, the people behind the company, if they are now taking a political stance and intervening in people's personal financial lives on the basis of politics, that is just that not enough people talk about that. And I think it's already happened to a few people. But when mainstream banks start doing this as well and start closing people's bank accounts, this is going to be such a huge point of, holy shit, what is happening here? This is too far.
Well, the NHS apparently is not going to treat racists. Have you seen this news in the last few days?
Yes, and I want to know how they define or how they find out whether a patient is racist. Like, do they go on their Facebook feeds, or is it just the way that they act towards nurses? I don't get it, but continue.
I don't know what the criteria would be, but yeah, back to PayPal and the payment processors. I don't remember who went first. I don't remember who was banned from PayPal first, but I remember it went around the world as big news, at least within our circles. But now people just get knocked out by it eventually after a bit of time. And to me, it's like one of those watersheds, like a Charlie Hebdo or the rape gangs, or Project Veritas is another one, what they found out about Google skewing search results. There's been so many of these moments where I thought, surely that'll get people mad. And they just didn't. It's been really strange to me what news people care about and what they don't care about.
Yeah, and I don't think it's such a matter of not caring or caring. I think it's a matter of fear. I think people are scared, and rightly so in many cases. I mean, Jesus, if my bank found out who I was and what I did online, I mean, they surely already know because they could see the transactions for the magazine and stuff like that. But yeah, if they just decided, fuck this guy, kick him off, we're not in line with this sort of thought, then I don't know what I would do. And that's the scariest thing. There are no backup plans here. And genuinely, your life could be absolutely destroyed. And I don't know who was first either. I don't know who the martyr for our cause was who got banned from PayPal first. But now you lose track. Now there's so many people. I mean, even people like Chris Dangerfield have been kicked off. And he's just a comedian as far as I can tell. I mean, he swims in our circles and he's friends with us. But is he really a threat? Is he really that big a danger? And then you, of course, after like a couple of months of even existing in this scene, they got you. I wonder if they employ people to just watch YouTube and figure out who certain people are and then take action accordingly. It's very scary.
What it is I guess they had the go ahead. They nuked the first person with it, whoever that was. I bet we would have been able to name them the week that it happened, though. It would have been high in our minds. But yeah, now that they know that they can do it, I guess that they do have these teams that are going around, nuking accounts. But yeah, as you say, what's the criteria for this, and why don't I deserve to use your service? I mean, they never make any of it clear, do they? I haven't really looked into the YouTube terms and conditions, so I don't know when I'm going to step over the line or how many times I've already done it. I'm not very aware of this stuff.
Well, that's an intentional play on their part. They make the terms and conditions so long and hard to read, and they keep changing them, of course. They keep moving the goalposts. So something you did 2 years ago might not be appropriate now, and then they can take action based on what you did then, which is just the most dystopian thing I've ever heard of. But it is a huge deal, because at the moment, and everyone can point out the problems. Everyone knows that this is a huge issue, but sites like BitChute, while they have increased their user base quite significantly, they're still seen as an inconvenience on the audience's standpoint. I think, and I understand that nobody wants to change their habits. Nobody wants to go, oh, okay, I guess I'll make an account here, and all right, I guess I'll dedicate more browser time to competitive websites that are taking on these big giants, because human nature is we don't really like change that much, and we don't like breaking habits. But really, all I can say is we need to get on board with these alternative platforms. That's why I mentioned Telegram earlier. Telegram is going to be big, man. I don't know if you feel this. It is. I'm having so much fun on there, and it serves our purposes fantastically well. You can have public pages, you can have private chats, you can organize, you can meet new people. It really is the social media that we were promised but never actually received.
You're right. That's exactly how we're all using it at the moment. When I first used it, I found it a lot of noise, because there were so many of these channels, and I think one of the first ones I was linked to was like Milo's, and he just posted sort of 2,000 times a day, and I was like, I can't get a handle on what this is. But after a few months, it seems to have they've formed into really useful groups, which I'm having a hell of a lot of fun in, and that seems to be how we organize. And as you say, it's social media that you want to use, that doesn't come with these horrific downsides like crushing your self-esteem. I think all the mainstream social media platforms are just built to sort of destroy you and tear society apart, whereas this one seems like our platform.
Yeah, it seems like you sign up to Telegram and there's no interference. I don't know if anyone's ever been banned from Telegram. I'm sure I could find that out easily, but it doesn't seem like the sort of place where that would happen a lot. I'm sure it does happen to some people, but Twitter sees itself as the judge and jury of acceptable thought, and they will step into your private conversations and tell you that you're not being acceptable enough and you should get off the platform, or they'll kick you off. YouTube as well, Facebook, of course. Telegram, I don't get that impression. It really seems like we have more control over that, and it's just addictive as well, because you don't feel that fear.
Yeah, they're completely hands off, aren't they? You don't know anything about who runs this company, and they don't appear to have any real policies. You just set up a channel and you go. And that can be a channel where it's just your things broadcasted out to the world, or it can be a group where everyone's chatting. And you can post anything you want in it as well. So these voice memo chats are great fun with GIFs and all sorts going on. It's really good fun.
It's excellent, yes. If I can get back to you yourself personally for a second. So you joined, first of all, you went to Mark Collette's Patriarchal Alternative Conference, which I've heard from everyone who was there that it was such an uplifting event. Everyone just didn't realize how good it would be. And it turned out to be a watershed for many people, actually. I've spoken to lots of people who say, yeah, that was absolutely fantastic. And I know the next couple are going to be huge as well, even bigger than the first one. What was your general takeaway from that conference? Were you surprised? Were you shocked? Were you expecting it to be the way it was? Or were you, what was your feeling on it?
Well, I'll tell you what. My goal was to go into it with as open a mind as I could. And a week before, I'd been to this Leavers of London thing in a pub, maybe 30, 40 people, I think. And it was just to find some people, because I was in this horrific Remain bubble where you got persecuted even for being on the side of Brexit, which is pretty milquetoast in our book. So yeah, I just needed to go find some other people that had been through sort of 2 years of browbeating and find out what they thought. And it was generally a room of sort of old school Labour socialists, the real trade union types. And I didn't gel with them, but it was at least interesting to be in a room full of like solidarity for people who'd had a really crap time over the last couple of years. Just the social situation. It's not even really the politics. It's just how people started treating one another. But then obviously the week after was Mark's conference, and I was a fan of every single channel. And the ticket was like 50 quid, which to me was an absolute bargain. That was an insanely low price considering how invested I felt in all of this. And yeah, it was pretty much as soon as I was in that room, I went up to Secret Sources straight away and told her that she'd done a lot of red pilling for me, and it's difficult to go through this stuff and learn this stuff. So you do feel a connection with these people, but it was the difference between everyone being these disparate channels that hang out on live streams to suddenly a group of people in a room with a really nice buffet, doing their best to give the best speeches they could, and they all succeeded wonderfully at that. It was incredibly inspiring, and it's exactly the kind of event you feel proud to be at. So yeah, massive thumbs up.
Yeah, well, when I had Mark on my channel last year, we were talking about the conference, and something he said that really impressed me, and it's a little thing, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, but it impressed me all the same. It was the fact that there was a dress code. Like, everyone had to be smart. Everyone had to turn up in a nice suit, or just, if you're a woman, not with your tits hanging out,
Yeah.
like, just be respectable. And I totally understand where he's coming from, because his history in the BNP, for example, the newspapers had the time of their lives by just photographing the bald guy who was drunk in the beer garden, who had a tattoo of a swastika on his back or something ridiculous like that. It was so easy for the media to smear them, and setting standards in a new movement is so important, because we have to be open and accessible and welcoming to people, but it's not for everyone, and we don't want it to be for everyone. We want it to be for grounded people with their heads screwed on, who aren't going to fuck around and who aren't going to paint us all with a bad brush, because at the end of the day, we want to affect change, and the things that we are concerned about are serious issues. This isn't just a social club. This is a serious movement. So what did you think about that aspect of it?
Hi lads, can you hear me? I just wanted to come in on that. Oh yeah, I did the story. Yeah. The Jordan Peterson Appreciation Club, my refuge in London. Went along to about 5 or 6 of the meetings. They were in a bar as well, and yeah, good chance to have a couple of pints as well. I love the real eels, the English real eels. Okay, just that point about movements and attracting the wrong sort of people and the wrong sort of press, especially. We have parallels. They're obviously talking about the English scene, the British scene, the British situation with the British press. The Irish press are even more partisan, even more on the side of the regime. So you're always going to come off looking worse. We saw that with the free speech. That was like brought home to us starkly with those last 2 free speech rallies, especially the last one, where it really did spill over into violence with the Antifa and their allies like Syria, etc., breaking the lines, breaking the police lines, and beating continuously attacking people, smashing up somebody's camera tripod and using the stick to beat somebody else. Ridiculous scenes. And it was presented in the press as the violence wasn't attributed to them. It was presented as if both sides, I can't remember the exact term, but it was presented as if both sides engaged in violence. So you're not going to win, just to be engaged in violence. You're just not going to win. We saw that today in London with the attempt to defend the statues by Tommy Robinson. I think it was a Tommy Robinson affiliated organisation. And the more, the sensible English nationalists had warned people, patriotic alternative had said, look, guys, this is a trap. This is an establishment setup. Okay, whether they did it on purpose or not, it is going to be a trap, because you're going to go along there with like 1,000 people. The very worst aspect, the tail end, on the bell curve, of, the very worst of your supporters are going to be the ones that are drunk and with their tops off and the tattoos and bald and messy looking ones are going to be the ones that the cameras focus on. And I had a look online earlier because I'd seen that there'd been a stabbing at it. Like one of the BLM guys had apparently stabbed a white guy. So that was on James Goddard's channel, and I had a look at that. And, well, when I say that, I saw the aftermath. I saw the guy lying on the ground, and it didn't look good. He wasn't moving. He was lying on the ground being attended. But when that had happened, but when you went to look at the main, when I googled it or whatever, I put it into the search engine, all I could see was far right hooligans disrupt. It was completely spun, even though there'd been a stabbing, the English nationalists had been painted as the villains of the piece. And this is exactly what happened in Ireland here with the free speech rally. The villains were Antifa and Siru, but the press, the regime press, it suits, Antifa and the regime. Their common area is us. The common enemy is ourselves. So it totally, the press, of course, back up the narrative that we were in some way culpable, and we didn't do anything. We have to be cleaner than clean. And there's a friend of mine who's actually at one of these meetings, and he was maybe he was at the messy end of the spectrum of our lot, which didn't involve he wasn't in any way violent, but he was going over to the other. He was going through our lines and going over to the other lines and goading them a little bit. And just give you an example of how that is perceived in the outside world. A friend of mine here who wouldn't consider himself a nationalist, I said, we were talking about the way the two sides get policed, the way the policing isn't equal, and he says, "Yeah, I know you say that Antifa. I've seen those videos that you sent me, but your friend was over. Looked like he was over fighting with Antifa." I says, "No, he wasn't fighting with Antifa. That was just the way it was made to look." But this guy, just by going over and goading Antifa, he made us look bad. He made us look guilty by association. So we have to make a decision either in or out, and if it's out, then we have to be disciplined. We have to stay. All of us stay out, right? And the decision up to now as stay out, thankfully, has been stay out of violence. And but we have to be, we have to just be disciplined with that. Anyway, okay, let's go back to this. Let me see. Oh yeah, real Irish Real Media. Drunken nationalism does more damage than anything else. I'll fire that up. Actually, I'm out of practice with this. To give Fine Gael Fine Gael credit, they have strict codes on what type of behaviour they'll accept. You wouldn't go to a Fine Gael event drunk. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that my friend was drunk. He was just like excitable. He's been attacked by Antifa in Galway, and this is the thing. It needs a lot of discipline, and it needs a team. It's a team job. He needs handlers. Those people who have got the emotional, who have been traumatized emotionally by previous attempts. They will very easily be goaded into situations, where the anger is up, and they could do something that they would regret later. So we all have to work together. Anyway, look, it's. I'm not saying there's anything like this coming up, but it is something. Well, there could be. There's talk. Some people want to organize. Potentially, I've seen calls for organising protests to defend our statues, etc. And we have to take this into account. We have to be very careful. The people who are calling for these things need to realise that you could be walking into a trap, and it needs to be managed carefully, and you need to be responsible about. We need to be responsible about how we do anything like that. Okay, cool. So let's play this. Let's go back to the video. So yeah, Unwashed, Iconoclast had just said his little piece similar to mine, and he was asking Unwashed what he thought.
Yeah, what you say about it being a serious movement, I think there comes a point in everyone's red pill journey where you learn that this isn't a debate, it's a war that's being played with very, very dirty tactics. So it's not a bit of fun, which is my problem with these sort of people in the middle, these centrists who are still bashing the woke hammer. But in terms of standards, I think the reasons for us being in suits were twofold. One is, as you say, in case anyone did infiltrate and take photos, it looks incredibly respectful, and they're not going to be able to get that career damaging or movement damaging photo of the guy that you described right there. And in fact, Mark's speech was actually all about that guy. And it's a very important message. But the second reason, which is more important, is that it puts everyone in such a good frame of mind. Everyone was having these really respectful conversations because you kind of felt a bit like you were at a wedding, because that's the only other opportunity you have to be in a room of 100 people that are dressed that smart. So it was very reminiscent of that, and it was in a nice location with nice food as well. So it put you in the frame of mind to sort of be productive. And that second reason is really important as well.
And I think there can be a really good marriage of serious business in terms of conferences and just having a laugh. These things don't have to be opposed to each other. And when I look at your channel, for example, you are just the definition of a guy who's enjoying himself, being involved in a new movement, really endearing yourself to many, many people. In fact, I don't know if you remember The Two Towers, the Lord of the Rings film, the Battle of Helm's Deep at the end. I imagine you as that orc with the suicide bomb running into the wall. That's what I picture you as. And he's like, Legolas, bring him down. And no one can bring him down. And he dives in there and blows up the fucking wall. And then the rest of us come in there. And you've really shown your commitment to this and shown how courageous you are, actually, because you go to events in real life and you stand up in a room of, let's face it, hostile people who will not share your views. And you'll stand there with confidence, with a microphone, and tell the panel of whatever event it is exactly what you think and exactly why they're wrong. And I really admire that, mate. But of course, not everyone has the confidence to do that. So how did you find that confidence to go in balls deep, essentially?
Well, I don't want you to oversell like how confident I feel when I'm doing that. You're talking about the Battle of Ideas specifically, I think. Although I've done a few since then. I rang that guy about Drag Queen Story Hour at the British Library because I think it's appalling that they're hosting that. But that one in person, that was tough. What I would say to people out there is if I could get people to attend with me, they don't have to put their hands up, but just having some people that are supportive in the room could do a world of good.
Is white privilege real? It seems to me that the question itself is a really good indication of white privilege, if only because the whole conversation around privilege began out of the experience of people of color discussing their experience of racism and discrimination. So a recent survey by The Guardian found that 1,000 people from who were surveyed from minority ethnic backgrounds found they were consistently more likely to face negative everyday experiences than white people in comparison in the polls. To me, the only legitimate thing to do at that stage is to listen and to hear and to take it on board and to take action. Anything other than that is a form of white privilege. Questioning the experience of people of color when they tell you that racism is happening is itself a form of white supremacy. It's saying that my position in the society, my perspective stands above theirs.
First of all, Miriam, I take massive issue with your redefinition of white supremacy when you turn it from being an ideology that bad people believe into a systemic idea. Then you get to call people like me who ask questions a white supremacist, and I think that's disgusting. If you look in the universities, Black studies, Jewish studies, women's studies, these are all things where you look at the group and you look at what they've done that are achievements and you lift them up as a point of pride. But we've recently seen in Edinburgh, they hosted an event called Resisting Whiteness, which is exactly the opposite. That anything to do with white culture is being deconstructed and ripped apart. Another example is in Australia. There was a university that wanted to do a course on Western civilization, and that got shut down because that was seen as colonialist, imperialist, white supremacist, when it's not white supremacy.
But this stuff is, I've made a real commitment to figuring out because I came from the other side, I have a good understanding of what they believe and how they think. But I've been quite committed to learning how the real crazy intersectionalists, people who are anti-white through and through, I've wanted to learn their arguments so that I can take them apart in 2 or 3 sentences. And it is just about having the facts. I came to this side from watching debates between, civ-nats and f-nats, and that's why I'm on this side at the end of the day. And once you've got a bank of facts, you can do it. I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to do what I've been doing, but I don't think we'll win without more people doing it at the same time.
Yeah, what you say there about being from the other side, and you know how these people think. I think a lot of us can relate to that, because while I was never part of any sort of social justice warrior movement or woke crowd or anything like that, when I was younger, I was a liberal by default, I would say, just because that's the environment I was raised in. School, university, didn't really think about politics that much. So I thought, well, yeah, UKIP are probably racist and Brexit and blah, blah, blah. Actually, by the time Brexit came along, I was fully on board. I'm talking about maybe 2012, 2013 time. But you do know how the other side think. You do understand their arguments because you used to share them in some regard. And it's like, it always makes me laugh when liberals come at me in comment sections or send me messages or emails and they say, I think you just haven't looked at the facts. And I think, no, I was on the other side. I did look at the facts and now I'm here. That's progression. That's how you know. I've never heard any sort of opposition viewpoint that has made me question the beliefs that I have now, because I don't believe there are any valid viewpoints. I think we are on the right side, and I think if these people kind of open themselves up to it as well, they would get here eventually too. But the woke thing, and you touched on it there, it's not just about going after woke people, because at the end of the day, that entire ideology is built on a foundation of being anti-white. And that's why trigonometry and Andrew Doyle and whoever else, you can name them off the top of your head, all these people in the center who go after these people, they will never touch that. They will never admit that. The woke movement is about being anti-white. If you scratch beneath the surface, if you look deep enough. Why are people scared to admit this, Nick?
Because they're going to lose their careers, I think, because they're being paid not to discuss this. I genuinely think it's as simple as that. I'm starting to believe that most of these people, because there's been an argument about gatekeepers and gateways for a while, and I'm really starting to believe that the people that aren't willing to go where we go, they must be being paid not to, because if you were thinking about stuff, you would care about what we care about. We don't want to become a minority in our own country, and that's perfectly reasonable. We're not saying that we want it to be a completely 100% white ethno state. We're just saying that we want to remain the majority. How would that ever be perceived as unreasonable? Yet we're on the fringe, because that's our main talking point.
Yeah, these people who say that we're on the fringe, I mean, we are on the fringe, but they push us here as well. Those in the media and these gatekeepers who push us to the side and say, oh no, that we're not going to engage with those ideas because they're just like nonsense, far-right internet, freaks. They do not represent the majority. And it's really confusing because you're right. All we are advocating for at the end of the day is to not become a racial minority in our own country. And if people have a problem with that stance, I don't know what to think of them, really. I don't understand their mindset. There's something up with them. And you're right. I think it's a marriage of two things. I think they are, one, scared of losing their careers. Two, there are incentives for them to push us to the side and to not engage with us. But three, I just don't think that they're very smart. And I try to avoid calling people idiots because, the left do that to us all the time. But I just don't think maybe they're not very inquisitive. Maybe that's a better way to put it. They don't really open themselves up to opposition ideas enough. And they exist in echo chambers. We all know that. I don't think we exist in an echo chamber because we came from the other side. We looked at the issues and we made our minds up. We thought for it. We thought for ourselves. Do you think these people can be reached in an honest way, or do you think the griping thing is the only way to get them to look at us?
Well, the way that I interpret it is it forces them to pick, and it exposes who is disingenuous and who's actually maybe willing to concede to our arguments. Because Spiked, who actually you may well have been the first person to point out that we really needed to watch out for them, that came on my radar anyway. I remember that coming up in one of your videos. And yeah, recently they've been trying to throw our entire side under the bus with the same insults that the left would use. So I see that as disingenuous. I don't think it's possible to reach them and convert them. But, the readership, of course it's possible to reach them. The people who are, just trying to figure out what's true. Yeah, those are the hearts and minds we got to change.
I think when it comes to someone like Spiked magazine, I don't think I was the first, but I do remember, I think about that guy who got fired from Asda for posting a Billy Connolly sketch on his Facebook page that insulted religions. Spiked's take on that was just, obviously they were against the guy being fired, clearly, but their solution to stop this happening more was to just have more insulting speech towards Muslims. And they said that trying to protect them from insulting speech was racist and bigoted. They did the whole thing like, oh, the left are the real racists. And I'm just thinking, that's such a cold take. Your solution to getting Muslims to buy into British society is to insult them more? What? Yeah, that'll work out fine. Are you crazy? And it comes down to this. Do you accept the truth or not? And by the truth, I mean that people's ethnic, religious, cultural identities are very important to them. And you can't just say to them, drop all of that shit and join in with progressive Britain, because it's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. Human beings are tribal animals. And, the Muslims, there is this huge counter-jihad movement that I'm sure you were a part of at some point. I certainly was. But at the end of the day, if you want my honest opinion about Muslims, I don't really have that much of a problem with them. It's just I don't think that they should be in Britain. We don't mix. We don't connect. I'm more than happy for them to go back to their own countries and exist and do whatever they want. But I don't have a personal problem with these people. I just think having a large amount of them as a population demographic in this country causes very clear and obvious social problems. And people like Spiked Magazine and the other centrists and anti-war crowd, they will completely ignore this element of identity, especially racial identity, because in their mind, the only thing that matters is free speech. The freedom to express ideas, the marketplace of ideas. It's not that simple.
Well, I would argue with you that maybe it is that simple, that the way that we get them is by proving that they're not actually open to the marketplace of ideas. It's not a fair fight, and there's ideas that they won't talk about. So this is a really useful thing for us, is that all of this lot have been using free speech as their main talking point for years. And now we've got some speech for them that they really don't want to talk about. So it's going to work in our favor long term, this one. But yeah, in terms of what they will and won't talk about, I mean, the ethno-nationalist position is a lot easier to make sense of than a civic nationalist position. Because as you say, if you've got one group of people in their homeland operating as they always have, and they know each other and they've got these cultural ties, then that's going to be naturally much less problematic than if you put a completely foreign one in the mix and just say, right, we're multicultural, so you all need to get along. So you new Brits, you are British, right? You have to adopt these British values, which we're never, ever, ever going to define. And you native Brits, well, you know, you were never really real to begin with anyway, because nation of immigrants. And, you know, Mike Graham was denying on talk radio that the ethnic English were even a thing at all. He was like, what's an Anglo-Saxon? Pretending that we don't exist at all. But the fact that the establishment will do this, it's quite easy to point out to people, I think. And I think they might well be ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, pointing out the hypocrisy of the free speech brigade, yet they block people and don't engage with us. Yeah, that's clearly a very effective tactic that we are going to employ and are employing now. And they can't get around it because they've built their careers up over the last God knows how many years on being the free speech guys. And it's just so easy to turn it around on them. I mean, I'm still shocked that Trigonometry called their channel Trigonometry, because didn't they ever foresee that they would get triggered at some point? I mean, ha ha ha. How easy is that? Come on. It's almost like it's a script. It's been written for us by some comedian. But yes, I completely agree with you. This is the hypocrisy element is so useful for us who, you know, at Spiked and Trigonometry. I'm not expecting us to win them over, but more the bulk of their audience. I mean, as you say, you go to the comment sections and, you know, some of them are abandoning them. They are coming over to our side. But I still think if you are an established brand like Spiked is, then you'll get people who are loyal to that brand, and it'll be harder to break them. Do you just think just hammer the free speech thing over the head, or is there anything else we can do?
I've been talking tactics with Morgoth. Do you want a real lesson from the expert?
Yes, give me the inside scoop. Come on.
Right. Okay. So the numbers on our side are not as big as the numbers in the mainstream. So by brute force, we can't attack free speech as a whole, or, you know, the anti-woke crowd as a whole, or as a concept, it's too big for us to attack. But what we can do is we can do these pylons on individual channels, individuals, brands that offend us. So it's happening a lot with adverts that just go far too far. Like there was the SAS one recently, the Scandinavian airline, that completely denied that Scandinavians had ever achieved anything or should have anything to be proud of. And the entire Western world said, no, we're not having that. It wasn't just Scandinavia, and it got ratioed to hell. And that's essentially what we've done with Trigonometry as well, and with the radio. And what you do is you wait for someone to basically insult our team by saying, no, we're not talking to them because they're fringe lunatics and their concerns about becoming a minority are ridiculous. We need to focus on feminists. So anytime someone goes off like this, we go to that individual, and then you knock them out one by one and force everyone else to pick a side. You see, this is how we progress, I think.
The SAS advert, I could believe it because it happens all the time, but I couldn't believe how blatant it was, how on the nose it was. It was like the bit in the advert that really made me laugh was there was two girls in an alleyway or in a corridor or something chanting whatever they were chanting, something like absolutely nothing, we've done nothing, blah, blah, blah.
What is truly Scandinavian?
Grattis.
Absolutely nothing.
Nada.
Niente. There is no such thing. There is no such thing.
And I just got visual images of The Shining, those two horror twins in a corridor. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I mean, it might just be that stupid. They didn't realize the connotation of that. But yeah, I think that's definitely something we should do. And one thing you can guarantee is SAS will not be the last company to do something that idiotic. I mean, Gillette last year, for example, that was at the beginning of the year too. They fucked up big time. And I said in my Deport Awards video at the end of the year, I said, Gillette won't be the last. There'll be someone else next year who will do something as bad. And lo and behold, in February, what do we have? SAS with this shit. Really, they're doing us a favor, aren't they?
Well, yeah, they are doing us a favor. I don't really see what the point in any of these adverts is. It doesn't look like an honest mistake to me at all. It looks like gigantic overreach. You know, I would have thought that propaganda would work in a more insidious way, and normally it does. I mean, we've now spotted fairly clearly that in all clothing billboards, you've got a black man with a white woman pretty much every single time. But that was operating quite insidiously for a while. But these Gillette, as you said, and this SAS one, they're playing such offensive overreach that you can't fail to notice it, even if you are a plugged-in normie.
Yes, exactly. And the normies do notice this. I had a conversation with a friend of mine. We're not too close, but he's not political at all. He doesn't pay attention to this shit. He knows I've got a channel, but he doesn't care. But even he said during Christmas time, the adverts on TV, he was like, why is it always a black guy and a white woman? And I'm like, yeah, you should look into that a little more. you know, all it takes is a seed. It's like inception, an idea. What's going on there? Yeah, I mean, they're doing a hell of a job for us. The other side to that, though, is I don't believe these companies are that stupid. Maybe they're arrogant. Maybe they think they can get away with it. But do you think I'm a bit of a conspiracy nut if I say that there's some sort of sinister intention behind these ads?
There's definitely a sinister intention behind the ads. I just think that it's, a few years ago, you'd have Alex Jones and maybe David Icke, I don't know, but people talking about how they were using subliminal techniques all over TV. This isn't really subliminal, is it? This is just saying, right, you don't exist, you don't count, right in your face, which is... I don't see what the game plan of that is, because it can't work. It's too demoralizing. Who would watch that and not ask some questions? I can't wrap my head around it, so I do think it really, really helps us.
It's like that meme. It's set in an office, and for the SAS advert, it's like, will this advert help us sell airline tickets? And it's like, airline tickets?
Yes.
What?
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, it's like the ideology. They're not even trying to sell anything anymore. In that Gillette ad, there wasn't a razor on screen.
Right, lads, can you hear me? Yeah, I saw that Keith Woods came on there about 20 minutes ago. So we've hit 40 minutes in that one. So let's time out and check out what Woods is on about. Just to chop it up a wee bit. Let's check out the chat here. Paul. Well, that's this new lap's proven to be a big disappointment. What do you got for us, Paul? Paul O'Neill. Always got something good for us. Oh yeah, the couple in the shop. Hey, yeah. Okay, let's see, Paul. My poor computer can't keep up with it.
Well, it's Canada. It's come to be expected, yeah. Yeah, there's no physical opposition. There is no media opposition at all outside of some Fox News hosts basically agreeing to so much of what they're saying, but just kind of being like.
And I think it looks like Tucker Carlson's days are numbered now, because it seems like this is targeted. They've done the timed audio releases of stuff he said about the Iraqis like 14 years ago, and he lost like all his sponsors, like Disney and a few others. He has like no sponsors now, so it is kind of seeming like his days are numbered now, which is some people think there'll be some big revolution if they kick Tucker Carlson off, but I mean, like, they kicked off Bill O'Reilly and he just became irrelevant like overnight.
Bill O'Reilly was bigger than Tucker ever was, and he did it for longer. And he's now us. He now does live streams, YouTube videos, and he's making more money than we are. He has a bigger audience, but he's just irrelevant. I mean, I think I saw some people asking these questions: does Fox need Tucker, or does Tucker need Fox? Tucker needs Fox is the answer. And I'm not saying that Tucker is unintelligent or bad at what he does. I have, as probably most people know, you as well, we're probably more on the Tucker critic side of these kinds of things. But yeah, he needs that kind of platform to become as big as he is. And just the Tucker podcast might be interesting. I doubt I would listen to it, to be honest. But it would be 1% of the impact at most. And I don't know. In terms of a lot of these people, Tucker has ultimately told us what he wants from the world. And he's said this multiple times, there is nothing worse than racial nationalism. Identity politics is inherently toxic. You have to reject it. We are all Americans. Blah, blah, blah. Morning in America again. And that is ultimately what he wants. And that doesn't mean that a lot of his criticisms aren't valid or highly useful. I mean, he has a big platform and he's, talking about H-1B visas or whatever. But when the rubber hits the road with Tucker, he goes back to cloudy, amorphous rhetoric. Even in the Corona situation, Tucker was, I'm a big socialist. I want to ban.
Do you not think he's kind of as far as you can go on a mainstream network?
Right.
He's just on the edge of what's acceptable.
And Coulter was brilliant at this for a long time. But when the rubber hits the road with all of these people, they go back. They know where the line is. And when even if we take race out of the equation, Tucker keeps saying this is, the elites are Democrats. True, and demographically clear. They're rich. They hate us. Blah blah blah. When the rubber hits the road, he doesn't support anything that might actually help poor, struggling white people in West Virginia. And because there's some tainted poison pill in there, and I get that, but it's already, the whole thing's tainted. You just got to kind of do it. And when the rubber hit the road, he opposed UBI. He actually opposes of welfare and so on. And so there's just certain type of hollowness to his populism. And when the rubber hits the road on the race issue, we go back to we have to avoid identity politics or racial consciousness at all costs. And he will continue to do this. And I think he would even do it if he were on a podcast. Bill O'Reilly didn't change his tune when he got kicked off. It's the same guy. It's hard to change your tune when you're in your 50s. And there's a huge audience for not changing your tune.
What's interesting is what I've observed anyway, the last few weeks, there's been a kind of acceleration within the American, I don't know, white identitarian, whatever you want to call it, the remnants of the alt-right. There's been a kind of acceleration there as well, where it's become kind of more anti-capitalist, more anti-Americanism. I even saw even the gripers were like giving up on America. Nick Fuentes, there was either a tweet or like a Telegram message where he was like, America's finished. It's like even the Amnats have given up on America. So a lot of people were saying that people like yourself have been kind of vindicated in terms of disputes that were happening in 2017-18. But then at the same time, it's like, you look at, as you were saying earlier, like there's nowhere for white people to turn to now, even if they're, getting red pilled or whatever by what's going on. There's no organization, there's no political party, there's no group to join. So it's like, a lot of people say, the alt-right was a failure in terms of nothing like that came of it. But I'm wondering, what do you think what lesson did you learn from the success and the rise and fall of the alt-right? What lesson that you didn't know going into it would you take now?
I learned some hard lessons that have cost me personally, and I wished I had the amount of money that I've spent on lawyers back, but life doesn't work that way. It doesn't go in reverse, and you get a do-over. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because where I am now is not too dissimilar to where I was 4 or 5 years ago, in the sense that I'm on the vanguard, but then they all ultimately agree with me, but they still don't like me. You don't really get credit. Being a Cassandra or a truth teller is a tough thing that you don't actually get credit, or those bridges that get burned don't get rebuilt. Yeah, I've seen some stuff on Hunter Wallace's Twitter about the Groypers are black-pilled, and they'll do that, but it's not like they're going to ever be like, oh, well, I guess all those things we said about Spencer were untrue, and no, they're never going to do that, and I don't expect to do it. I mean, I don't know if they do. I don't even know how I'd react to it, to be honest. But being out in front means that you're kind of getting hit from both sides, and that was definitely my feeling in the fourth quarter of 2017 and certainly in 2018. And it was definitely not my feeling from 2016 through the first 3 quarters of 2017, leading up to Charlottesville, where I was getting a full frontal assault by the media, but the media assault was kind of positive in the sense that we were making headlines every day. We had a feeling of power, even though we were struggling to get funded. We were getting deplatformed to a greater degree. We had this kind of feeling of being important and powerful because the media gave us that. And I think it is important to run that gauntlet and do that. I think that there's a hard ceiling on any movement that is anonymous red pilling. We're gonna red pill the masses, and then what? I mean, you have to present yourself as moving forward in some direction. You have to present yourself as impactful, important. You don't just present yourself as dropping red pills. And so there was this utter euphoria, and there was this sense of the movement where we put aside our past criticisms of Spencer as being too out there or elitist or having leftist tendencies or all these kinds of things. And we're all going for this, and we're all on the same team. And in the fourth quarter of 2017, I felt I'm out in front, and I'm getting hit by the left, of course, but I'm getting hit by my erstwhile friends, maybe even harder. And it's more damaging to be undermined than it is to face an opposition. And so I feel like I learned that lesson. I learned a certain lesson about, I learned a certain hard lesson about the media, in the sense that it's a dangerous game, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't play it, but you have to always be strategic about it, and you can use them, but then they can flip it around on you, and they can blow you up, and then they can deflate you just as fast. And that kind of is the trajectory that they like to do with celebrities, even that are non-political and non-controversial. So I learned that the hard way. I mean, if you keep going, and they just kind of can't stop you at some level, if you don't get demoralized, you can learn lessons, but you can't renounce or denounce yourself. You can survive, but it is a very difficult gauntlet. But I think I learned just a strong lesson about I mean, I don't want to say I don't want this to sound like I'm just indulging in victimization, but I learned a lesson about fair weather friends, and there are people who want to get something from you, and if you're hot, they want to be around you, and you know, some of that aura will from you will go to them, and they want that, but that doesn't mean that they have your back. And I learned that the hard way. I mean, you can see this with the alt-right in particular. But to be honest, you can see this with the alt-right as well. They can turn on a dime once that little computer in their mind tells them that, well, actually, the cost is 1% higher than the potential damages, and so we're going to denounce them. That happens. That will happen. And I think where I am now is I want to rebuild. It's more difficult now at deplatforming, but I want to rebuild where we are. And I just want to do our work in the sense that the alt-right, and this is something I didn't quite get into, but the alt-right was ideologically unsound. And that you could all take some blame for that. We loved the Trump train. We loved this feeling of winning, and we did suffer.
Let's see if we can get this to play this. This might take me a wee minute to sort out. Okay, the WhatsApp with far too many tabs open as usual. No, this is vicious, guys. This is vicious. Look, somebody's got it recorded, so it'll probably do the rounds. It's on WhatsApp. Somebody, a friend sends it me on WhatsApp, so it means it's not a YouTube. I'm presuming it's not a YouTube. It's not being downloaded. It's about 10 seconds. I'm just clearing down a few. Things are escalating pretty fast, lads. History is just speeding up. History is really sped up. Like, just after the election, it was the border crisis in Greece. Does anybody remember that? It seems like last year, doesn't it? And then it was COVID and all the, everything that came along with that. The conspiracy theories, the cover-up, the stupidity, the anticlimax, as it were. Right, okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Irish Real Media said those guys shouldn't have went there. That's what Mark Collette was saying. Mark Collette's got a good head on him. He said, "Don't go, don't go. It was the right thing to do. Do not go." Well, it's not even about getting attacked. It's just how it's going to be. Everything is going to be spun. Some people might go to martyr themselves. People will go and say, "Right, attack me." You would do that maybe if the media was going to be on your side. Keith Cobalt for being, who's Keith? Keith Lemon. Yeah, Paul says, surprised only one got attacked. Okay, so let's stop that screen. And then share the screen again. You see, the thing is, patriotic alternative are building away in the background. You don't need, they're building steadily, brick by brick, person by person, coming in. You don't need to. This is what I say to people who say we must be on the street, because it's built. Our movement, the Irish nationalist movement, is building away in the background. It's building away in the background. You're not gonna. The press aren't never gonna paint you in a good light if you go on the street. Yeah, there we go. Let's see how we can get this to work. Let me just finish this point. Yeah. But what we just focus is build away in the background, and then contest elections. They're harder. The press, because that's just you talking directly to the electorate. The press aren't going to give you any favors anyway. But it comes down to how, if you've got loads of bad press from the press spinning situations where you were completely in the right, but the other side did wrong, but it's painted as if you both did wrong, and possibly you're the one to blame, as what happened, as what we've seen happen the last two free speech rallies. So I'm not saying that all protests are a bad idea, because protests do they do give people an opportunity to bond. And you know what, those free speech protests at the end of last year were actually very useful from that point of view. They didn't change the government's view, I don't think, at all in terms of the free speech, but it did allow us to start building a face-to-face network. People who were from the same county and had never met each other ended up going. People from Galway, I stood between two people from Galway who didn't know each other but met each other through me, because I said, okay, you're from Galway and you're from Galway, meet each other at the free speech rally. And then those two people went back and worked together on the election campaign in Galway. And these sorts of things wouldn't have happened without the free speech rally. But now what I'm saying to people is, we don't need necessarily to go to Dublin to do that. You can use social media. You can search for people on Facebook. You can search for friends who you can find out. You can put in towns close to your town, and then search, and then filter it by people, and you'll see all the people in your friends list. There'll be people in your friends list who you didn't know lived in the next town. Nationalists who you've added, who you didn't even know they lived in the next town. You go and talk to them, you contact them, you go and talk to them, you go and meet, you build it up block by block by block, bit by bit by bit, working on them in the background, because they can't fuck with that. It's harder for them to fuck with that because it's person to person. They can't fuck with that. Now, if you're trying to do it through the press, that's one extra leg of the journey. You know, if you're speaking through the press to the public, you're relying on the press. The press, as we've seen in our country, is a bad actor. So, Joe, I'm not going to talk about that subject. I'm not going to talk about that. No, you have to talk to her directly. Well, okay, what I'd say is there's a new common leader for the Irish Freedom Party in Carlo Kilkenny. The young fella. I'll tell you in a second. We do need a tender for narcissism. We do. I've lost my girlfriend over the head of narcissism because I didn't go to see her. So that's my big. That's my suffering for. I didn't go to see her over Christmas. I stayed here in Ireland because it looked as if I was trying to tell people, look, there's an election coming. It's coming in February, and not too many people paid attention to me. So it was all for nothing, wasn't it? Oh well. Well, at least I set up I used that time to set up the Facebook, the local Facebook groups, which were to enable people to meet up and get to each other. Okay, somebody's going around slabbering and saying that I'm harvesting, because I used the word harvesting when I talked about harvesting patriots. What I mean is like getting them together, getting them into a community, so that the stronger ones, the leaders, can show a good example to the people that are shyer or younger or haven't got experience or on the learning curve. That's what I mean by cultivation. Cultivating. If you get like 500 patriots together at all different levels in one county, and the meeting, then that's like a cultivation. That's a community. Old-fashioned communities, not disjointed communities where people aren't talking to each other, but communities where people are working together. The community looks after the education and the development, because people get nurtured and people learn by example. Like when you're young, you know, if you grow up in a strong community, you learn off your parents, but you're also learning good examples of your neighbours and the older kids. You're seeing good modelling from the older kids down the road and whatnot, like working hard and whatnot. Okay, getting into scraps or whatever, or a bit of bad behaviour, but you're on balance. The community puts people together and develops, and it's a self-contained system. So to get a critical mass of nationalists meeting up in each area, that will be a self-contained system. So that's why I put the Facebook groups together, to start it off like in a greenhouse, so they've got the social media way to connect each other, but then to give them that helping hand so they could find each other. But then the idea is like sooner or later they'll throw away the social media, and they'll be meeting each other naturally. Yeah, okay, so I said I was going to show you this video, so let's do that. This is the stabbing in London. So from the white pills of building local communities of nationalists to the black pills of interracial violence stoked up by identity politics in London. Look at that. Let's get another look. Just before oh, let me take that down. Sorry, I'm just putting that one up for a second to take that one down. Could you see that okay? Luke is the guy's name, Joe. Luke is the young guy who's now the AFP, the Irish Freedom Party, common leader in Carlow Kilkenny. Melissa is no longer in the party. Yeah, could you see that? That was pretty vicious looking. Now, it looked like whatever it was he had was a small blade. It wasn't like, thank God it wasn't a big carving knife or something like that. That would have taken the head clean off him. I'll play it one more time and then we'll move on. I'll move back to the video, but since I had that, and since these things could be, this actually might get this video removed. Okay, I'll have to be careful with that. There you go. Now that fella down on the ground appears to be in a different place. This concerns me slightly, because you do have people making things up just to stir things up, and we need to watch out for that. You know, we need to fact check things. So it looked like a clear wall there, or maybe that's just because the camera's moving. You can't see any bricks in that wall, but I was thinking because the wall, this was a clear wall, and the other guy seemed to be lying in front of like a wall where you could see the bricks. But now, a second ago, I saw a brick. I did see the bricks. Yeah, you can sort of see the bricks there, can't you? Yeah, you can see the bricks clearly there. You can see the blocks behind. So let me go back to this one. Yeah, a second ago there, I saw the blocks. Maybe you guys can't see it because of the quality is like one step removed. Yeah, I mean, this will come out in the wash. Or maybe not. You never know with cover-ups. So the green, what does the green mean? Yeah, so the guy who did it, probably this fella. Close matches, yeah. Boot up, obviously. Okay, I've seen enough of that. So what do you think of that, guys? That I don't know. That I don't know. I think there were two Stalin, yeah. Oh, was that the protest in Cork, Joe? Yeah, I agree. You see, this is where, okay, all this, where everything's planned. There's a lot of people say that everything's planned. Like everything, you know, which gives the impression that everything's sort of like choreographed. And I don't really buy into that way of going on, way of things, because I think people have their plans and people have their wishes, but there are conflicting forces at work here. So the bankers have their plan and their wish, and it's not even as if they're all thinking, they're all coordinated, because there's a certain amount of competition between them as well. You know, so international finance capital, to some degree, is coordinated, and to some degree, it's competing among itself. But there is like a common, like, you know, if you look at a monopoly, even like a government, even like this government creation process that's going on at the moment, they are acting from the same philosophy, and driven by the same motivations, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're all coordinated and all taking their orders from somebody on high that's pulling all the strings. Like anybody who's worked in human organizations knows that to get everybody to do everything exactly as planned all the time is impossible. So I had a company of 7 people and I couldn't manage it with 7 people. So, and I was like paying them and they were like taking money, I was paying these people. So some great employees, I have to say, fantastic employees, but to get everybody like to be on the ball, doing everything, and that wasn't even, they were being authentic. They were, they weren't lying. If you've got like the same organization of people and they have to lie or have to be false, like you have to have a lot of good liars. For all these, the bigger the conspiracy, the more people have to lie, the more people have to be coordinated, the more people have to not fuck up, the more people love to blab as well. If everything was so tightly coordinated, there would be whistleblowers. But it's not as if there's nobody planning this. There are people planning this, like the international finance capitalists have their agenda, the politicians have their agenda, which is different because they want good pensions, good careers, and they overlap. They do a deal and they overlap, and they get bought off, etc. The liberal media haven't got the same motivations as international finance capital, for example. International finance capital is concerned with making money, boom and bust cycles, etc. But their strategies overlap, their needs they're common. They have a common enemy, which is nationalism. So their strategies overlap in that they both decide to attack nationalism, but they're not like motivated by the same thing. It's almost like four dogs in the fight, and each one has got its owner like shouting it on and hoping for the best, and got their game plan. And maybe 3 of the dogs will back up, will sort of like decide to attack the one dog, nationalism. Let's say the nationalism dog. But then these 3 dogs could be attacking each other a little bit at the same time as well. So this is what I'm saying. It's a bit more complex because it's humans. Humans are involved, not just machines. It might be different when we all get replaced by robots. That's just my take on the. It's all planned, and there's like shadowy figures in the background, the Illuminati pulling the strings. No, I don't buy that, but I do. There are powerful vested interests behind the scenes that are trying to push things along. They can't control things right down to the last minute, but they're doing the best. They wish they could. Okay, what we'll do, right? My man hasn't turned up. My neighbour hasn't. Let me just check. I know he was saying he had a few things to do, and he did indicate there was a possibility he might not be able to do. Oh God, there's a fella with a bloody face. Picture just came through. Yeah, these will be coming flying through to you lads, I'm sure, through the network. As somebody was saying earlier, that it's a good job. Hey, more peace. It's a good job the cameras were there to pick up all this stuff. Imagine how bad it would be if the cameras weren't there. Oh, a render, that would be. Is there a render, EastEnder, a render? Is that the answer to the nationalist YouTube? Monopoly, remember the bank account, JP Morgan. Yeah, that's a good metaphor for it. I mean, we saw some ridiculous conspiracy theories about COVID. It was a plan to get. It was a. This is the one I don't buy. That it was a plan to get us all locked up in the house, and then they could control us better. Which it didn't happen. That's not the way it panned out. I think anybody who was promoting that needs to be embarrassed and needs to come out and say, "I was wrong. I got it wrong. I need to be more careful. I need to look for better evidence the next time around." Otherwise, you can't be one of these people who just like predicts something for the future, and then when you get it wrong, you don't do a debrief and don't look at why you got it wrong and trying to improve your epistemology, you know, your way of getting information, your way of predicting the future. You have to be looking at your models for predicting the future and your evidence all the time. If you're not doing that, then you're just guessing. And somebody who's just guessing and just throwing, like a 5-year-old could say, you know, you could predict the weather tomorrow. So, you know, they'd say, go through all the weather states and then, oh, it might be sunny, or it might be raining, or it might be foggy, or it might be snowing. And then, you know, if they do enough predictions, they're going to be right at some point. Morphy said something about reflection. Let me see. It's a good time to reflect on what's going on with the statues and so on. At best, let all this go over so we can win armies over for the next election. Yeah, Bill, you know, it's a debate to be had. Do we continue to build slowly in the background, or do we try and go out front and make some sort of a statement, bearing in mind that the media are going to spin everything that we do? So it's a you know, you got to weigh up the pros and cons, and this is why it's a pity that the leaders, the influencers, are fighting with each other. Like when I say influencers, I mean the YouTubers have been fighting with each other, and aren't prepared to. Some of them obviously are working partnership, but there's a lot of them that aren't, and there's a certain lack of communication among the parties as well. We'd all love to see like the heads of the parties and the YouTubers who are just as important. You know, this is something that's apparent to me, is that the most powerful person in Irish nationalism is the YouTuber who has 22,000 subs, because he's on 2 times a day. And he's far more powerful. He's got far more sway over nationalism than the party leaders, who, because they're in the public, because they're being watched so carefully by their enemies in the captured media and the regime propaganda to slip up. They have to be careful. They have to limit the amount of time they spend, because they have to watch every word they say. Whereas the YouTuber can be, because he's not standing, he or she isn't here. Let's say pronouns. All that nonsense aren't under the same pressures, aren't under the same electoral pressures, because you know they're not going to be standing for elections. Maybe they will in the future, but they haven't put themselves up there for doing that yet. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that those big influencers who have those massive audiences, they have a massive responsibility as well, because the nationalists are looking up to them, are hanging on their every word, and they need to be thinking about what messages they're giving to people. Is it just a message of stay passive, or is it a message of be active? And what can they be active at? What suggestions can they, you know, what activities can those influencers be giving people? Like I've talked at the start of this about what my advice is. Maybe I talk when I got started, it was all about do this, do the other thing. That was against the background of the other YouTubers weren't really giving advice about what to do. So I maybe came across a little bit bossy because of that. What do people think? I mean, do you want to hear from a YouTuber? Do you want to be given suggestions as to solutions, as to what things to do, or do you think that the YouTubers should just sit back and allow things to happen organically? Do we have time to allow things to happen organically? Bearing in mind that the politicians have got day jobs, don't have, it's their first time for most of them running a political party, so they're just learning the ropes in terms of man management, etc. You know, and of course they're under the spotlight of they can only broadcast so much, because it would be a massive strain on them to. You have to watch what they say. So to a certain extent, you're hearing scripted sort of things. They can't just come on and speak off the top of their head, because you know, if they make an error, that could be the end of their political career, or could it? You know, maybe the Overton window is moving. These are the sort of things that keep me awake at night. Anyway, agreed. Irish Real Media says agreed. Need solutions and helping points. We all know them. Yeah. The problem needs to be addressed. When you're talking about the problem, that's addressed to the people who, like, I've watched enough videos to know after you watch 3-5 videos, the first 3 to 5 videos you watch, you see there's a problem in Ireland. Right? If you're an intelligent person and open-minded enough to watch a decent breakdown, like for example, Garage Murphy gave about the asylum industry. Right? If you watch that and 2 or 3 other videos worth, now it might take 10 short videos or 10 poor videos to be equal to the one super video like Garage Murphy's, but let's say 3 top videos worth of information. You don't need anything else. This is what I said to people. You need to get people. There's one friend I have who keeps calling me up and saying, "Have you read this? Have you read the other thing? It's important to read." And I'm saying, "Okay, no, my friend, no. It's you can become like super intelligent and know everything, but if there's only 100 of us who know all, everything about geopolitics and everything about Irish history and everything about electoral strategy and everything about the dark forces, use the metaphor, working behind things, that's not going to fucking help us because there's still only 100 people. That's still only 100 people. So rather than spend our time getting 100 people sort of like super, super intelligent, why don't we just focus on getting everybody intelligent, everybody to the the amount of information that's enough to put an X beside a nationalist party? Surely that's what we should be trying to do, because then you could take that time that you're forming. You could so you can spend 10 years reading. One person can spend 10 years reading and become super intelligent, and if 100 of us do that, then that's 100 super intelligent people. Or you could have like 1,000 people who are well read, right? That's not enough to get. That's not even enough to get somebody elected. Or you could put those 100 people's time, the 100 that you start out with, that we're going to be either super intelligent, or we're going to go out and find other and educate 10 other people and get your 1,000 well-read people. Or the 100 people could go and talk to everybody in the county and give them just enough information to put an X. And that way you might have 10,000 people with just enough information to be able to put an X on a nationalist candidate come election time. Which is going to be the more useful? A, B, or C? So that was just thunder and lightning. Okay, that's me rabbiting on again. Thanks for your attention. My neighbour, I know he's got a family and mouths to feed, and he was people to look after. I've got a call coming in from the ex-girlfriend, so fingers crossed for me. Tinder, Master's Tinder. Over and out. Good night.